How difficult has it been to see Lori date now?
It's hard, man. I ain't gonna lie, it's hard. I've had to swallow some things.
Did she really think he'd pick up? Or was she just hoping the Lori Harvey magic hadn't finally run out of batteries? Buckle up, because the Harvey household isn't just tense, it's in a state of absolute civil war. We've all seen Michael B. Jordan holding that golden statue, looking like the ultimate A-list king. But what happened behind the scenes when the camera stopped rolling is enough to make your skin crawl with secondhand embarrassment. Reports are exploding that Lori Harvey made the ultimate desperation play, reaching out to her ex on his biggest night, only to be met with the coldest shoulder in Hollywood history. We're talking straight to voicemail, no return call, who dashes dash this energy, but the real dagger? It isn't coming from MBJ, it's coming from inside the house. Lori's own stepsister, Brandy Harvey, has allegedly reached her breaking point and is finally spilling the tea on what really goes on when the Instagram filters are off. Was Lori actually sobbing in bed while her mother, Marjorie, played damage control? Is the It Girl era officially hitting a brick wall of reality? We're diving deep into the betrayal, the ego, and the most awkward family feud of 2026. You might want to grab a drink for this one, because the tea is boiling. The narrative surrounding Lori Harvey has always been one of calculated moves and high-stakes dating, but what we are witnessing right now is the total collapse of a carefully constructed PR empire. To understand the magnitude of this scandal, we have to go back to the moment the relationship with Michael B. Jordan first began to fray. At the time, the world was told a very specific story. Lori was the young, independent woman who simply wasn't ready to settle down, while Michael was the man who wanted it all. It was a narrative that painted Lori as the one in control, the one who walked away, and the one who dictated the terms of her own life. But according to the explosive new leaks allegedly coming directly from Brandy Harvey's camp, that entire story was a fabrication designed by Marjorie Harvey to protect the brand. The reality was much darker, involving a power struggle within the Harvey household that has finally reached a breaking point. Brandy has reportedly grown tired of the favoritism and the way Steve Harvey's resources are funneled almost exclusively into maintaining Lori's lifestyle while his biological children are pushed to the sidelines. This tension has been simmering for years, but Michael's Oscar win was the catalyst that blew the lid off the whole operation. When Michael stood on that stage, he didn't just win an award, he validated every choice he made after the breakup. He proved that he didn't need the Harvey machine to reach the pinnacle of success. Meanwhile, back at the Harvey estate, the atmosphere was reportedly anything but celebratory. Brandy allegedly witnessed Lori attempting to break the silence, convinced that Michael would still harbor a soft spot for her. The plan was simple, a congratulatory call that could be leaked to the press to show they were still on good terms, effectively keeping Lori's name attached to Michael's historic moment. But when that call went unanswered, the mask slipped. Brandy reportedly described the scene as pathetic. Watching a woman who prides herself on being untouchable suddenly realize she had been completely erased from the narrative of a man who is now arguably the most powerful actor in Hollywood. This wasn't just a missed call. It was a total rejection of the Harvey influence. The public has always been suspicious of how quickly the narrative turned against Michael after the split. Suddenly, there were whispers of him being a serial cheater, rumors that he didn't appreciate black women, and claims that he was emotionally unavailable. We now know, thanks to these internal leaks, that these stories were allegedly planted by a close-knit circle involving Lisa Ray and Marjorie Harvey. The goal was to devalue Michael so that Lori wouldn't look like she lost a winner. They wanted to make him look like the problem, but the problem was actually the suffocating nature of the Harvey family dynamic. Michael reportedly felt like he was dating an entire PR team instead of a woman. Every date was a photo op, every holiday was a produced segment for social media, and every private moment was subject to the approval of Steve and Marjorie. Brandy's alleged revelations suggest that Michael eventually realized he was being used as a prop to elevate Lori's status from a socialite to an A-list partner. And when he stopped playing the game, the family turned on him, What makes this so awkward is the sheer level of hypocrisy involved. Steve Harvey has built a multi-million-dollar career telling people how to act like a lady, think like a man, yet his own household appears to be a chaotic battlefield of ego and resentment. Brandy's reported decision to expose the reality of Lori's breakdown is a direct shot at the curated image Steve has spent decades building. The reports suggest that Lori didn't just cry, she spiraled, realizing that her roster of high-profile men doesn't carry the same weight when compared to a man who has achieved true greatness on his own. The irony is that Lori spent so much time moving from one famous man to the next to prove her value, but Michael proved his value by moving away from her. This has created a massive rift between the sisters, with Brandy allegedly pointing out that while Lori spends millions on birthday parties and vacations, the biological Harvey children are often left to fend for themselves in the shadow of their father's second family. The corruption of the narrative goes even deeper when you look at the financial ties. Anonymous sources close to the family business claim that the Harvey brand has been bleeding money trying to keep Lori in the headlines. From paying for paparazzi shots to ensuring she is seated in the front row of every major fashion show, the costs are staggering. Brandy's frustration allegedly stems from the fact that this investment in Lori hasn't yielded a sustainable career, only a revolving door of headlines about who she is dating. When Michael won his Oscar, it was a reminder that real talent and hard work can't be bought with a PR budget. The tension in the house reached a fever pitch when Lori reportedly demanded that Steve use his connections to get her a major role or a high-profile interview to distract from Michael's success. Brandy's alleged response was to tell her to grow up and face the fact that she fumbled the best thing that ever happened to her. This brings us to the most controversial part of the investigation: the abuse of power within the media. It is no secret that Steve Harvey has immense influence, and for years, he has allegedly used that influence to silence anyone who had anything negative to say about Lori. But you can't silence your own blood. Brandy's alleged defiance is the first time the Harvey armor has been pierced from the inside. She is reportedly documenting the late-night tantrums, the demands for constant validation, and the way the family treats staff like expendable assets. The fake investigation into Michael's infidelity was the final straw for Brandy, who reportedly knew the truth all along. Michael was faithful, but he was exhausted. He was tired of being the stepson-in-law to a man who wanted to control his every move. Michael's decision to send that call to voicemail wasn't just a snub. It was a declaration of independence from a family that tried to ruin him when they couldn't own him. As the body of this scandal continues to grow, the public reaction is shifting from curiosity to outright mockery. People are starting to see the patterns. Every time Lori's star begins to fade, a new high-profile romance magically appears. But Michael B. Jordan was different. He was the one that gave her legitimate A-list adjacent status. Without him, she is back to being a socialite in a sea of influencers. The internal reports coming out of the Harvey camp suggest that Marjorie is terrified. If Brandy continues to speak, the entire house of cards comes down. They aren't just protecting a daughter's feelings anymore. They are protecting a business empire built on the illusion of a perfect blended family. But as the leaks show, that family is anything but blended. It is divided, and the divide is getting wider by the hour as Michael continues to soar while Lori remains stuck in a cycle of her own making. The awkwardness of this situation is compounded by the fact that Michael is thriving in the very world the Harveys desperately want to conquer. While Steve is hosting game shows, Michael is producing and starring in global blockbusters. The reports of Lori's late-night calls to Michael suggest a level of desperation that contradicts everything she has ever said about dating like a man. It turns out, when you lose a man who is actually building an empire, it hurts a lot more than losing a rapper or a professional athlete. Brandy's alleged involvement in exposing this is a clear sign that the Lori Harvey show is reaching its series finale, and the viewers are ready for the truth. The findings indicate that Lori's team is currently in emergency meetings, trying to figure out how to spin Brandy's silence or discredit her entirely before more Details about the Michael B. Jordan era come to light. We are seeing a shift in public power. For years, Lori Harvey was the one who won every breakup. She was the one who left, she was the one who kept the jewelry, and she was the one who moved on within weeks. But Michael B. Jordan didn't follow the script. He didn't chase her, he didn't beg for her back, and most importantly, he didn't stay the same. He evolved. He became a winner in the most objective sense of the word. And that is exactly why the reports say Lori is taking this so hard. It is one thing to leave a man. It is one thing to leave a man. While Michael's power was always within himself, the internal dissension is now spilling over into legal territory, with whispers of non-disclosure agreements being tossed around like confetti. Steve is reportedly trying to force his older children to sign new contracts that would prevent them from discussing family matters in public. But it might be too late. The information is already out there. The stories of Lori crying over a voicemail are just the tip of the iceberg. The deeper investigative findings suggest a pattern of emotional manipulation that goes back years. Michael B. Jordan was just the most famous victim of a system designed to keep Lori relevant at any cost. But with the Oscar win, Michael has become bulletproof, and the Harveys are left shooting blanks. Brandy's alleged stance is that the truth needs to be told, regardless of the damage it does to the family brand. Because she is tired of living a lie for the sake of a stepsister, who doesn't respect the family name. As we move further into the breakdown of this scandal, we have to look at the role of the public in all of this. We are no longer buying the girl boss narrative. We see the desperation. We see the awkwardness of a family trying to stay relevant by clinging to a man who has clearly moved on. The reports of Michael's circle staying grounded and keeping him away from the Harvey drama show a level of maturity that the Harveys simply can't match. Michael didn't need to put out a statement. His Oscar did the talking for him. And as Brandy allegedly continues to feed information to the press, the world is finally getting a look at the real Lori Harvey, not the one on the red carpet, but the one who realized too late that she walked away from a once-in-a-lifetime kind of man and now has to watch his victory from the sidelines of her own failing narrative. And as we transition into the deeper breakdown of the scandal, the focus shifts from the initial shock to the calculated reactions of the Harvey camp. The desperation didn't stop at a phone call. It escalated into a full-scale media war that backfired in ways they never saw coming. As the leaks from Brandy intensified, the family's attempts to suppress the truth led to even more embarrassing revelations about how they handled Michael's departure from their lives. The narrative was no longer about a simple breakup. It became a case study in how a celebrity family tries to manipulate public perception when they lose their most valuable asset. The focus now turns to the specific incidents where the Harveys allegedly tried to sabotage Michael's reputation only to have those efforts blow up in their faces, leading to the awkward public standing they find themselves in. Today, the shift from a private family disagreement to an all-out public relations war happened. The moment the Harvey camp realized that Michael B. Jordan wasn't going to play the role of the heartbroken ex-boyfriend anymore. According to the deeper investigative findings allegedly sourced from those close to Brandy Harvey, the second phase of this scandal involves a series of failed hit pieces and leaked stories that were intended to paint Michael as the villain of the story. When the initial rumors of infidelity failed to stick, the strategy reportedly shifted toward questioning his character and his loyalty to the community. Brandy has allegedly pointed out that this was a coordinated effort, led by Marjorie, to ensure that Lori remained the victim in the public eye. They wanted to create a narrative where Michael was the one who changed, the one who let fame go to his head, and the one who abandoned a good woman for the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. But the problem with this strategy was that Michael's actions spoke louder than their leaks. He remained professional, focused, and above the fray, which only made the Harvey family's attempts look more desperate and transparent. Brandy's reported accounts describe a household that became an echo chamber of resentment. As Michael's career reached new heights with the success of his directorial debut and his eventual Oscar win, the mood in the Harvey mansion allegedly turned sour. Every time a new trailer dropped or a new endorsement deal was announced, It was seen as a personal affront to Lori's brand. The reports suggest that there were actual meetings held to discuss how to counter-program Michael's success. This is where the awkwardness truly peaks. Imagine a family so obsessed with public perception that they viewed a former partner's career milestones as a direct threat to their own social standing. Brandy allegedly found this behavior repulsive, especially considering that Steve had biological children who were trying to build their own lives without the benefit of a massive PR budget. The favoritism toward Lori wasn't just about love. It was about protecting a business asset that was rapidly losing its market value. The fake investigations into Michael's past relationships were perhaps the most embarrassing part of this phase. Reports claim that people close to the family were reaching out to Michael's former associates, looking for any dirt that could be used to humble him. They wanted to find a disgruntled ex or a former employee who would testify to his true nature. But according to Brandy's alleged leaks, they found nothing. Michael's reputation was solid and his circle was tight. This failure only fueled the fire. When they couldn't find a scandal, they allegedly tried to invent one, pushing the narrative that Michael was acting white or distancing himself from his roots. This backfired spectacularly when Michael continued to invest in the community and use his platform for good. The Harvey machine was trying to use old-school smear tactics against a man who was playing a completely different game, and the public started to catch on. The fallout from these failed tactics led to a massive internal crisis. Brandy reportedly confronted Marjorie about the damage they were doing to the family name. She allegedly argued that by attacking Michael, they were making Lori look bitter and obsessed. But Marjorie, according to these reports, was convinced that they had to maintain the illusion that Lori was the prize that Michael had lost. This led to the awkward social media posts from Steve, where he would post cryptic quotes about knowing your worth and letting go of what doesn't serve you to the outside world. It looked like a father supporting his daughter. To those on the inside, like Brandy, it reportedly looked like a man being manipulated into participating in a petty vendetta. The investigative findings suggest that Steve was often caught in the middle, trying to keep peace in a house where the women were at war over a man who had already moved on. As Michael's Oscar night approached, the tension reached a boiling point. The reports coming out of the Harvey camp suggest that Lori was convinced she would receive some kind of private acknowledgement from Michael before the big night, thank you, or a nod to the time they spent together. When that didn't happen, the desperation turned into a frantic attempt to reclaim the spotlight. This is when we saw the sudden influx of Lori Harvey lifestyle content, the expensive vacations, and the tactical photos with other famous men. It was a clear attempt to show that she was thriving, but Brandy allegedly saw right through it. She reportedly described it as a sad performance for an audience that was more interested in Michael's victory than Lori's wardrobe. The awkwardness of trying to compete with an Oscar win with a bikini photo is a level of delusion that Brandy allegedly felt the need to expose. The corruption of the family dynamic extended to how they treated their social circle. People who were once friends with both Michael and Lori were reportedly forced to choose sides. If you wanted to stay in the Harveys' good graces, you had to stop liking Michael's posts and stop attending his events. This with us or against us mentality created a toxic environment that eventually pushed Brandy to the edge. She allegedly saw friends being bullied and employees being threatened with NDAs just to keep the Michael is the bad guy narrative alive. The investigative findings suggest that the Harveys were using their financial influence to control the conversation, but as Michael's stature grew, their influence began to wane. You can't blackball a man who is the face of global franchises. And the realization of their own powerlessness made the family even more volatile. Another layer of this scandal involves the alleged misuse of Steve's business resources. Reports suggest that staff from Steve's production company were being diverted to manage Lori's social media crises and plant stories in the press. Brandy allegedly felt that this was a betrayal of the employees and the business itself. She was reportedly vocal about the fact that Steve's legacy was being sacrificed to protect Lori's ego. This created a rift between Steve and Brandy that is yet to heal. The investigative findings indicate that Brandy began documenting these instances of resource diversion as a way to protect herself and the other biological children if the brand ever faced a legal or financial audit. The level of internal distrust was so high that Brandy reportedly kept her own set of records to counter the official family narrative. Public reactions to the Harvey family's behavior during this time were a mix of confusion and mockery. Every time Steve would go on his show and talk about family values, social media would erupt with comments about the Michael B. Jordan situation. People were pointing out the hypocrisy of a man who preaches about respect while his family was allegedly trying to ruin a young man's career out of spite. The awkwardness was palpable every time Steve had to address his daughter's dating life. He would try to make eye. It sounded like Lori was just exploring her options, but the public saw a pattern of a family that uses men for clout and then discards them when they become more famous than the it girl herself. Brandy's alleged leaks confirmed what the public already suspected. The Lori Harvey magic was actually just a well-funded marketing campaign. The scandal breakdown also includes the Damson Idris era, which many insiders, including allegedly Brandy, saw as a tactical move to distract from Michael's rising star. The report suggests that the relationship with Damson was fast-tracked to give Lori a new A-list partner to show off. But unlike Michael, Damson didn't seem interested in playing the Harvey family game. There were reports of tension between Damson and Steve from the very beginning. Brandy allegedly pointed out that you can't just plug and play a new man into Michael's spot and expect the same result. The public didn't buy the new romance with the same fervor, and the comparisons to Michael were constant and unfavorable. This only added to Lori's reported frustration, leading to more late-night breakdowns that Brandy was forced to witness. The consequences of this behavior started to manifest in Lori's professional life. Brands that once wanted to be associated with her it girl image began to pull back, fearing the drama and the toxic reputation of the Harvey machine. The investigative findings suggest that several major deals fell through because the companies didn't want to be caught in the crossfire of the Harvey-Jordan war. Brandy allegedly used this as proof that the family's strategy was failing. They were destroying Lori's career in an attempt to save her pride. But Marjorie and Lori reportedly wouldn't listen, convinced that they just needed one more big win or one more big man to put them back on top. The cycle of desperation continued, with Brandy watching from the sidelines as the family brand burned through its credibility. The awkwardness reached its peak during a family dinner where Steve allegedly tried to force a reconciliation between his daughters for the sake of a united front photo. Brandy reportedly refused, stating that she wouldn't participate in a lie anymore. She allegedly told Steve that he was being blinded by Marjorie's ambition and Lori's narcissism. This confrontation was the moment the blended family facade officially died. From that point on, Brandy was seen as a threat to the family business. The report suggests that Marjorie began a campaign to isolate Brandy, cutting her off from certain family perks and trying to turn Steve against her. But Brandy's alleged response was to double down on her investigative efforts, gathering more evidence of the family's corruption and their obsession with Michael B. Jordan. As we conclude this part of the breakdown, the focus shifts to the inevitable fallout. The Harveys had spent over a year trying to control a man they couldn't reach, and in the process, they had lost control of their own household. The leaks from Brandy were no longer just whispers. They were becoming a roar that the mainstream media couldn't ignore. The narrative of the perfect Harvey family was replaced by a story of jealousy, favoritism, and a desperate struggle for relevance. The stage was set for the final act of this drama, where the consequences of their actions would finally come home to roost. And Michael B. Jordan would have the last laugh without ever having to say a single word. The focus now turns to the hypothetical resignations, the financial crises, and the public backlash that followed the revelation of what Lori really did after Michael's Oscar win. The final act of this tragicomedy doesn't just involve bruised egos and missed calls. It marks what many are calling the potential bankruptcy of the Harvey family's public credibility. According to the most recent investigative findings allegedly stemming from Brandy's camp, the aftermath of Michael B. Jordan's Oscar win has triggered a series of hypothetical crises that the family is struggling to contain. We are talking about a full-scale fallout where the public is no longer just laughing at the awkwardness, they are demanding accountability for the years of manufactured narratives. The report suggests that several high-level staff members within Steve's media empire have quietly resigned, citing a toxic work environment where their primary job was no longer production or broadcasting, but acting as a digital cleanup crew for Lori's personal life. Brandy has allegedly highlighted that these resignations are just the beginning of a massive internal probe that could reveal how deep the corruption of their media influence actually goes. The public backlash has now reached a fever pitch, with fans of Michael B. Jordan launching an unofficial boycott of Harvey-branded content. This isn't just a few angry tweets. We are seeing a significant dip in engagement across all Harvey platforms. The investigation into the family's response to Michael's win reveals a desperate financial pivot. Reports claim that Steve is being forced to reconsider his business investments as the Lori Harvey brand, which was once a lucrative asset for fashion collaborations and endorsements, is now being viewed by corporate sponsors as a liability. The awkwardness has translated into actual financial risk. Major luxury brands who once scrambled to have Lori in their front rows are reportedly distancing themselves to avoid the messy reputation that now follows her. Brandy's alleged leaks indicate that for the first time in his career, Steve Harvey is facing a situation he can't simply talk his way out of on a morning show. Perhaps the most dramatic consequence discussed in these leaked reports is the hypothetical government probe into the family's nonprofit and business expenditures. While these are currently just whispers in the industry, the tension is real. Brandy has allegedly suggested that the line between personal image maintenance and business expenses has been blurred for far too long. If an audit were to happen, it could expose how much of the family's wealth was funneled into buying the fame that Lori enjoys. This has led to a state of panic within the Harvey mansion. Marjorie's reportedly in a constant state of damage control, trying to secure the loyalty of their remaining inner circle with ironclad non-disclosure agreements and financial incentives. But as we've seen with Brandy, you can't buy the silence of someone who is tired of living in a hall of mirrors. The fallout also extends to the social hierarchy of Hollywood. The investigative findings suggest that the Harveys are being quietly uninvited from the exclusive circles they once dominated. When Michael B. Jordan won that Oscar, he didn't just win for himself. He solidified his position as the golden boy of the industry. Choosing Lori over Michael is now seen as a bad career move for anyone looking to stay in the good graces of Hollywood's elite. This has left Lori in a precarious position, allegedly reaching out to old flames and minor celebrities just to keep her name in the Who's Dating Who columns. Brandy's reports describe this as the downward spiral of an it girl, where the desperation to remain relevant leads to increasingly poor choices. The awkwardness of Lori being seen at low-tier events while Michael is at the governor's ball is the kind of social demotion that the Harveys never thought they would face. As the consequences mount, the internal family dynamic has reportedly dissolved into a series of legal threats. Reports claim that Steve has consulted with high-priced attorneys to see if there is any way to legally silence Brandy. This move has backfired, as Brandy allegedly responded by threatening to release even more black books of family secrets if they try to come for her. This is a Cold War of the highest order. The biological Harvey children are allegedly forming a united front, no longer willing to play the role of the happy blended family for Steve's TV specials. The tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife, and it all traces back to that one night when a voicemail went unanswered. It's a case study in how one moment of pure, unadulterated rejection can dismantle a decade of PR planning, publicly. The narrative is shifting toward a redemption arc for Michael B. Jordan. But for the Harveys, there is no clear path to redemption. Every time they try to pivot, the Brandy leaks remind the world of the truth. The hypothetical resignation of Steve Harvey from some of his more prominent philanthropic roles is being discussed as a way to step back and focus on family, but the public sees it for what it is: a tactical retreat. The corruption of the family image is so thorough that even their charitable acts are being viewed with suspicion. Brandy's alleged stance is that the family needs a complete truth and reconciliation moment. But Lori and Marjorie are reportedly terrified of what that truth would do to their status. They are trapped in a prison of their own making, where the bars are made of fake headlines and the guards are their own bitter resentments. The investigation into Lori's current state of mind reveals a woman who is allegedly obsessed with winning the breakup in a way that is no longer possible. The report suggests she spends hours monitoring Michael's social media and the comments sections of news articles, looking for any sign that the public is turning back to her side. But the Lori Harvey magic has been debunked. The sarcasm and humor that the internet now uses to discuss her roster is a far cry from the admiration she once received. She has become a meme, a cautionary tale of what happens when you prioritize clout over character. Brandy's reported documentation of this obsession paints a portrait of a woman who is lost without the validation of a high-profile man. The final consequences of this scandal are still unfolding, but the financial crises and public backlash are already undeniable. Steve Harvey's legacy is being reevaluated not as a king of comedy, but as a man who allowed his household to become a tabloid factory. The awkwardness of his public standing is a far cry from the Family Feud success he is known for. Brandy's alleged exposure of the real Lori Harvey has pulled back the curtain on a system of media manipulation that many feel is long overdue for a collapse. Michael B. Jordan, meanwhile, continues to move with a level of grace and intention that makes the Harvey drama look even more amateurish. He doesn't need to fight them. He already won the moment he stopped carrying Dot as the dust settles. The hypothetical resignations and financial probes will likely dominate the headlines for months to come. The Harvey family is at a crossroads. They can either lean into the honesty and try to rebuild, or they can continue to fight a losing battle against the truth. Brandy's reports suggest they are choosing the latter, which only ensures that the fallout will be even more explosive. The world is watching, not because they care about the gossip, but because they are fascinated by the spectacular failure of a PR machine that thought it was bigger than the truth. Michael B. Jordan's Oscar win wasn't just a career milestone. It was the final nail in the coffin of a narrative that had been suffocating the truth for far too long. We are now looking at the complete disintegration of the Harvey girl blueprint. This investigation has shown that when you build a brand on the shifting sands of celebrity relationships and fake reports, it only takes one strong wind to knock it all down. Brandy Harvey's alleged role as the whistleblower is the ultimate plot twist in a story that the Harveys thought they were writing. But in the end, the truth has a way of writing its own ending.